Hello, and welcome to Rabbits and Advocates. Whomst are you?
I am Simon. I am the advocate. You can catch me advocating any day of the week. Devil's advocating, to be specific. I'm always trying to see what is the other person's perspective, what is other people's in general's perspective, and I encourage you to do the same. Always think outside of, what you would assume at first. And who are you?
You can call me Sam, but my friends call me Francis. Simon here is occasionally my friend, mostly my enemy, but
Really?
just for today, he has the honor of calling me Francis, so
Yay!
it's fine. And I am the rabbit, and it's because I like going down rabbit holes. I like to learn about the nichest of things and just, explore.
Francis, what are we talking about today?
Today, we are talking about storytelling mediums for our pilot episode because we plan to talk a lot about, creation,
Arts,
and
stories in general.
generally making things.
Yeah. And specifically, not what makes a good storytelling medium, really what is a good storytelling medium? What is the best storytelling medium? What is the worst? What is kind of in the middle? This is going to be Storytelling Mediums Tier List.
Woo!
So what?
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And what is it that makes a good storytelling medium? Well, to really answer that, we have to know what makes a good story. Because, they're very deeply intertwined.
And for that, we have, after much debate, created our own kind of... Yes, a lot of debate. We've made our kind of system, and we call it A.C.E.
Have you written an A.C.E story? That is always the question. So an A.C.E story, the first aspect of that, accessibility for the creator and the consumer. So we want to think, is this storytelling medium for the creator? Is it affordable for, an independent storyteller, someone who's starting out, who's small? That's always an advantage. Is it something that's kind of anybody can approach? And for the consumer as well, is it something that's digestible for the average person, accessible, that the average person can get their hands on? And also considering things like, I don't know, is it for people who are disabled or who have aren't able to experience maybe all aspects of the kinds of stories we normally think of? Can we reach them? Of course, this isn't the only factor. There are times when maybe sacrificing some accessibility could be worth it to achieve some of the other factors, but it is something to consider.
Mm-hmm. And next we have, for our C of A.C.E, conveys.
Should we debate it a lot about?
Yeah, it's kind of a vague term. Another term I came up with is efficiency, but that doesn't really fit within the acronym, and we're all about acronyms here.
Yeah.
So what we mean by conveys is, how does the story come across within the medium? Are the consumers able to understand what is going on? Is it clear? Although unclear stories do have their own merits. Generally, people want to know what's happening. How good is this medium and this story at conveying plot, character, etc.?
Yeah, and that definitely ties in with having an emotional impact, which is the third letter in the acronym. Really, I think the point of stories, if we boil it down, is to just make people feel emotion. I don't think I personally would ever seek out a story if it didn't make me feel anything. And even if a story makes you feel nothing, empty, that is an emotion in and of itself. If it's exploring some sort of mental health thing, or the feeling of being lost in your life, feeling nothing, that still is an emotion, and that's something you might seek out to engage yourself. So really, if a storytelling medium is failing to arouse a reaction in the audience and to make you feel something, then that's not good.
Also note, this can go against the author's original, intention for the emotion.
Yeah, it might not be the emotion
still means
they wanted.
something.
But yeah, it can still, even if you're feeling something that the audience didn't intend, I don't know, you're watching Twilight and you're treating it as a comedy when it's meant to be a drama, that's fine. That's still artistic value.
Yeah, what do you get out of it?
Exactly. So we have laid out here, as you can see, a bunch of storytelling mediums. We went really broad with this. We've got different combinations. So not just, say, short films in general, but animated and live action short films. What are the advantages of each? Um, is there anything else before we just get right into the ranking?
I feel like we can cover our larger categories. We're going to be discussing every medium that we could think of, which includes audio-visual, stuff in a book format, and other.
Okay, yeah.
Other. It's other.
Other. And yeah, this might be too comprehensive or not comprehensive enough. I mean, 'cause it's another debate in and of itself, like what counts as a separate medium. Like, should there really be a distinction between like animation and live action, or are they kind of the same since it's just putting stuff on a screen? But we kind of found like what felt like a happy medium that didn't get like so specific that it's ridiculous, but still kind of covered all the bases and all the significant differences you can find among all the types of stories.
Yeah, we didn't really want to go into genre, but also we didn't want to go like too broad, because I feel like there is a distinction between animation and live action and etc. We've already had this debate.
Yeah, and that's not what this episode is about. Maybe another time.
Maybe another time.
But for now, Francis, are you ready to start?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
So where are we putting visual art as a storytelling medium?
We've discussed this before.
It's the
I'm
worst.
putting it in F.
It's terrible. And why is it so
It's
bad?
It's not that visual art is bad, because I myself am a visual artist and I love art. I'm a weird art history nerd. Love-hate relationship with it. Don't have time to get into it.
And I'm none of those things, but
let's
stuff
face
looks
it.
pretty.
If you're just at a museum looking at a painting, it's very hard to get the full picture of what the artist is conveying unless you really like look at the words on the side. And we're not like saying comics or anything within visual art. We're talking exclusively like paintings,
Just a picture
or something.
So it could be digital art as
A
well,
picture.
right? Or like a pencil drawing.
Yeah.
But this is not a series of pictures. It's just one picture of whatever dimension, I guess, but just like one shot that is not moving.
And you can get a lot of detail from a single picture. Like if you look at a giant image of Napoleon, there's going to be a whole story about why he's holding his hand in his pocket and why he looks like maybe short on a horse or maybe not short on a horse. But you're not going to get all of that information just by looking at that one picture, because it's a picture. A picture tells 1,000 words, but sometimes you gotta read those 1,000 words from a different source.
So a lot of times, yeah, the context is kind of outside of the picture. Is that necessarily a bad thing if you need outside context to understand something?
Not necessarily, although I do feel like that impacts the accessibility. If you're just
Definitely.
like looking at a single picture and there's no words, you're just like, oh wow, yeah, it's pretty, but I don't get it.
Mm-hmm. And it ties in with emotional impact as well. I personally am not, roused to tears by reading a bunch of history so that I can understand some like obscure painting. But I mean, if you're already familiar with that history, then it could be very impactful to you. But it's definitely one of the things, like across this medium, probably one of the most, is exclusive the right term? Like a film, you could, even if it's historical, you could probably still understand it even without knowing the history. The history might add a bonus, but visual art, more than a lot of these mediums, maybe any of the mediums, you need the prior context.
It's just very limited, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell a full story with one picture?
Probably, but whether or not everyone's going to fully understand that, different question.
Mm-hmm. And it's always going to be limited. Like one picture can only hold so many events. So for those reasons, it's pretty weak.
However, I do say, still love art as a medium.
Keep in mind, this is storytelling mediums, not art mediums.
These are storytelling mediums.
This is
not
all about
like, yeah,
one thing
art is
important.
art. Art is always going to be good.
What is a story?
Oh God.
Yeah.
What is a story?
But I was saying a story is a sequence of events, which can also mean one event.
Yeah, generally.
Yeah, so things happening. A lot of time, visual art, there's actually not a lot happening in terms of like people doing things, or I mean, a lot of time there is, but less compared to many of the other mediums.
Yeah.
So yeah, next, novels, which is a big one to do so early.
It's chunky. There's so much encompassed within novel. because like once again we have genre and there's just like such a rich history of literature.
Well, one advantage I think novels have over something that's more visual like film is that you can get inside the thoughts of characters and it comes across much more natural. I think narration in film is usually, it takes away when you could be showing things actually on screen. Show don't tell, famous storytelling thing. Whereas in a novel, you can be showing the thoughts of a characters and it's really, it just comes across, it works better to just have like an inner monologue, which is something that everybody has. Whereas to have that in film feels like cheating. It doesn't quite come across the same way. You can always be in someone's heads with someone's head with a novel. You can be in different people's heads, but with film, you're always outside.
It's very easy to show different perspectives within novels. Like within film and most like other mediums, it's very hard to say like this is a first person film or a second person film, but it's quite easy to convey that within the written word.
Yeah. I also think a novel gives the author more control over what the audience is kind of experiencing from the story. Because in a film, there is value to this that the audience could be looking at anywhere on the screen at any given time. You can hide stuff in the background, which is cool, but sometimes that can lead to a lack of clarity, and you could just not get the message across that you're going for. Whereas with a novel, you can't read a novel in the wrong order unless it's like, do you know the book House of Leaves?
No,
It's like crazy book with like text like different parts of the page and like rotated, and it's like that's almost more like visual art. But with a traditional novel, like your eyes are going to move across the page linearly, so the author always knows like what isn't they're putting into the reader's head at a given time, which really
unless
is like
the reader
mind
skips
controlling the reader.
over. The reader could skip over like a couple of things, and also there's like composition in film to like draw the eye. That's generally what like all of the like film studies and stuff things are for.
Yeah, you have some control in film.
Yeah. However, within novels, it really is just what is on the page. So it's very directed.
Mm-hmm. In terms of the, what do you think about like accessibility in the novels? I think it's very accessible.
Well, it is quite accessible until you get to like literacy rates, but like most people are illiterate these days.
There is that. It can be tough when like a book is like the language is so crazy you can't understand it. That doesn't happen as often with a movie.
Yeah, but then at that rate, purple prose, is the offer a good offer?
Yeah, it gets into that, but is purple, like, what would be the film equivalent of purple prose?
Probably like those, I hate to generalize, but like some of those art films that just show random shots and you have no idea what's going on.
Okay.
And then like, probably there's a deep meaning, but what the fuck is going on? Also, we're gonna swear?
We can swear, yes.
Sweet.
I declare now. But I probably won't, because I'm a good boy. You're a bad child.
And I am a sailor.
Yeah? Yeah, I definitely, like, I think purple prose, or that kind of idea of, like it's too weird or complicated for the audience to get anything out of it is more common in books than in television or movies.
For accessibility, though, historically, books, not great. In modern times, very good.
Yeah, older books can be not that accessible. I guess an older film, like you can still understand it fine. It's just it might not appeal to you because it looks so bad.
I was talking about literacy rates of the past.
Oh, that's what you mean. That too, yeah. Like in the past, a lot of people couldn't even read.
Yeah, but these days, at least in like Western society, most people can read.
And just a lot of people don't enjoy reading.
Yeah,
or it requires more
like
discipline. That's objective.
Yeah, it really depends person to person. And even for like people with disabilities, people who are like visually impaired, audiobooks exist.
Yeah,
which I think are great.
Braille, Helen Keller is
mostly audiobooks.
Yeah. And,
I don't think it'll be exactly the same experience for a blind person because a lot of books like do rely on visualization of like the settings, at least in like imagery.
Yeah, that would be tough. Imagine being a blind person, like blind your whole life, and it's like visual descriptions. It's like, what is even going on?
At the same time, people with like aphantasia who just can't imagine images in their head still probably get a good kick out of books Even like I know people who are writers who have
Same, yeah.
that's a hard word to say. Aphantasia. So like
Yeah, there's that.
they probably
I
still
think
have some like
they
sorry,
probably still have some.
you go. Very good imagery within their work.
Yeah, I think for the creator, very accessible as well because it's like the cheapest medium to make. If you have like a laptop, like I'd estimate, I don't know, Microsoft Office is kind of expensive, but I don't know, you should open a notepad and write your novel.
Google
I
Docs.
guess. Google Doc, free. You sell your soul to advertising, but I mean, at least you don't actually have to pay from your wallet, which is pretty good. And yeah,
Even if you can't afford like a laptop or anything, you still have number one, if you have a phone, which is more common,
yeah, type on
then
your
like
phone.
you can just type it out there. Hell, you can just go to the dollar store, buy a pen and a notebook, and
Yes.
like go ham.
Which is painful, but you should absolutely do it. They're like vintage typewriter that you happen to own. So many ways to write. I think anyone, like virtually anybody, can just write.
But like about like the book thing, how do you think Emily Dickinson did her poetry? Like
I don't know about like the circumstances.
laptops are
around
fairly
Emily
recent.
Dickinson. Was she like
most-
really poor?
No, she was before the time of laptops. Is what I'm saying.
Oh, I know. Who you mean. It's just there's like so many like authors from then. I'm like Emily Dickinson specifically. I'm like, what's going on with her?
No, first example that popped into my head.
Yeah, I think I mean a lot of people like today people don't have as much patience for that. I definitely like I could never write a book. I've written like passages by hand, I guess, but to write a whole book like that and then have to like go back and like reproduce it to edit would be really painful.
We're weak. We'd get carpal tunnel these days.
That too. Yeah, it's also cool that like you whether you want to write like a rom-com book or like a sci-fi epic, it will cost the same amount. Film, it's going to vary a lot, but a book can be like anything.
I mean, it depends on how long you make it and how many notebooks you buy.
That is true.
But that's practically negligent at this point.
Yeah, that doesn't count if you're digital.
Yeah.
Okay, we
Books.
thought about a lot.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Where would you put it? I honestly, I would put it as like one of the best.
I would say best as well.
You'd say best?
However, recently, I
Oh.
had to do an assignment that was arguing about comics versus books, and I
Oh
was
my
thinking,
God.
like, damn, comics are very good versus books because of that visual aspect, and with books, it is kind of hard to convey settings
Yeah. I just
and exact things.
we should
Blessing
kind of
and a curse.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm interrupting you, son.
No, it's fine.
I think we shouldn't count personal preference too much because like for me personally, since I'm less of a visually oriented person, and since comic relies so much on the visuals, that's something that detracts for me. But for someone else, it
Okay.
could be like an advantage. So that shouldn't really count. I will say a big weakness I think with comics is just the speech bubbles are like small. They really only put dialogue and like some extra bits, which means you're missing out on like all the beauty of like maybe like a really long like detailed internal monologue or like a detailed description of whatever, which I just will get to it later. I think an amazing way to like mediate that and have the visuals and the like as much text as you want is visual novel, but well that's for later. But that is one
And you're
weakness.
biased.
It's a big limit. I'm biased too. But that is a big limit on comics. And
Yeah.
okay, so novel again, to clarify, this is without pictures. Because we have picture book later. Which should also be another way to kind of mediate that.
Novels can, however, we said include small illustrations, like a map
Yeah.
in the beginning of the book, or like chapter illustrations, which I love and I think we should totally bring back.
Yeah, those are pretty cool. And yeah, like the little like notes, like showing something that's on like a piece of paper instead of like describing it, that's cool. It still counts as a novel. So do you think that that's like the comic thing is enough to like downgrade it from like best to just great?
Not really. However, it is like we've just been praising novels the entire time. I felt like we had to like throw a little something in there.
I mean, the big thing, like for a lot of people, if we are taking this into account like general opinion, like a lot of people just don't like they don't want to visualize everything themselves.
Yeah.
And if there are other mediums where you
However-
can get both the visuals that are present and a lot of writing, maybe that actually makes the novels a little worse.
Although maybe that might be a little downfall of our society and social media making us all ADHD and like we just can't focus on
That's
stuff
true.
anymore, and that's why novels.
But since we said we
But,
define
like-
what makes a good story, like emotionally impactful conveys, this is just like taking into account like people, presumably today, so we should instead of like, even though I probably agree society is going downhill if we try to read a book, we should still be catering to the people that live today with these.
Yeah.
And
I personally really like novels. I avoided reading actual novels for the longest time, but even then, I still read a lot.
Yeah. And I'm trying to get back into it. It's basically happened to me. Like I lack the patience, but I still recognize how much enjoyment you can get out of that. And I think even like reading improves you as a person. So are we thinking best?
Definitely. Ooh. We can totally change this later on if we like change our minds. So I feel like this might be
Again, let's throw it in best. We spent like 30 minutes on one thing, so we need to get going.
That's just what we are.
It is. Short story.
We can... Short stories.
Okay, so shorter.
What's the best
more
short
digestible.
story you've ever... What's the best short story you've ever read?
I don't like regularly read short stories, to be honest.
Is there one that like has stuck with you for a long time?
It would probably be a short visual novel rather than a short story. That's just text, which is what
okay, well, we're not on visual novels yet. Hold your horses.
I know. I guess some fanfiction stuff is short stories. Is there ever... But even that, like the ones that have impacted me are probably closer to like novella lines, which I guess we would include in novel, because that's closer. So yeah, I don't have a ton of experience with short stories. I
don't read short stories for fun very often, but I do read them for school. And I will say, Shirley Jackson's The Lottery made an impact on me, even though I did not realize it.
Yeah, I haven't read it, but from what you described to me, like the themes that are conveyed of like the blind adherence to tradition is like, I definitely see that in the world. Yeah,
short stories.
A little more focused. It can get across a clear message in just a small amount of time. Definitely more accessible.
Less overarching
in terms
narrative.
Of easy to understand. I just want to say it's a little subjective, but like a short story, like my automatic thought is like, oh, a novel would be like cooler. Like a short story is what you write to start out, and then the novel is like that's your actual big project.
At the same time, I have also read quite a few short stories that I feel like horror short stories do really well.
That's true. It can be difficult to sustain horror over a long time. I definitely noticed that with like video games that are horror.
And also you can still, I don't even know if that one counts as a short story anymore. It was like 30,000 words. But
I don't think that's a short story. I think that's...
Okay.
I don't think there's 30,000 words when I think short story. I don't know if it technically counts as a novella, but...
Maybe a novella. I don't know. It was published, I think, as a short story. But The Lost Performance of the High Priestess of the Temple of Horror by Carmen Maria Machado.
Okay.
What a delicious story that I read like a few months ago. No. Yeah, no, it's been a few months. Has it been a few months? I don't know what time is anymore. What a delicious story, though. You haven't read it, but I highly recommend it.
Mm-hmm. How would you compare visual... No, I'm literally so biased, it's on my brain. How would you compare short story to novels?
Short stories to novels.
Like, the advantage just is more accessible for... Like, it's easier... Like, less of an investment, but potentially less reward. But maybe it's just as much reward if it impacts you.
For the good ones, it leaves a punch.
For the bad ones, it's over quick, so you don't have to endure it.
Yeah.
So like even
short stories are quite nice.
Yeah. I think my gut says it should be lower just because it seems less significant. But if you really think about it, just in terms of like it's just as good. Just it can be very impactful and it's short, it's more accessible.
I could dock points for conveys just because it is shorter. At the same time, if a good short story can convey a lot of information, a lot of character, a lot of emotions in a short amount of time, it's more difficult to write a good short story than a good novel, I think, just because it is more difficult to be concise.
It is, but it's also a lot less to manage. Like, to be concise throughout a novel, which is ideal, you have to go through the whole novel, whereas if your focus is, like, smaller, like, the task of, like, really making one short story concise seems way less daunting to me than making a whole novel really concise.
I might just have to put it at best. I have no reason
I think it needs to go
really to put it in great.
I feel like it might also honestly be above novel. Even though that I hate that because it feels so wrong to me.
I hate that too.
But like
it feels like blasphemy, but
in terms of our criteria, like it's better than a novel. To be short and just quick. Maybe even
And
move
when it's
novel
good,
down,
it's
but let's
really
get to that
good.
later.
Ooh,
Because that's scary.
man.
We've been talking for 30 minutes. Let's keep going.
Yes.
Screenplay.
Screenplays.
This is not a movie. This is just the screenplay, the document with like the script and like reading that. So like Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, if you bought that, the book.
Or like any script ever. This also
too.
covers this also covers just like scripts for stage, not just screenplays for film.
Oh, for stage
Although
as well,
generally
yeah.
that's generally what we might consider, just because
Yeah.
I feel like we've had more experience within screenplays.
Yeah. I think reading just a screenplay is pretty underrated.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's also very concise. Not in the sense of a short story, but like almost on more on like a moment to moment basis where the descriptions are small. Like, I think screenplay more than anything challenges the writer to be concise, which like really pays off for the audience experience because it's just so like clear and simple and laid out.
Amen. It lays out actions exactly as they are.
Yeah.
I do like that screenplays are kind of more objective in a way, because it is just like descriptions of a character.
Yeah.
Oftentimes within screenplays, at least in like one of my professors have told me, oh, don't really put in the emotion in the screenplay. That should come from your actor.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that is quite interesting, because then that leads to a lot more of room for interpretation when you're just physically reading the screenplay and not watching a film.
Mm-hmm. But that would imply like obvious dot points for the emotional impactfulness if it is more objective.
Yes.
I will say, honestly, I feel like some of the screenplays I've read are still pretty emotional, though, in terms of the description. Like, it still
Yes,
comes across
indeed.
as kind of visceral. But as you probably
That
know
might
more
just be something from... That might just be a good writer versus a good medium.
Would you say, like, the screenplays in general are less emotional, though?
Generally, yes. Just
Yeah.
because you get really in the head when you watch film and when you watch novels. You really see the perspective. Screenplays, I feel like, often are a little more detached.
Yeah. You also less accessible because you need, like, a special program to even make it, pretty much. And if you want to format yourself, it's a nightmare. And you need to know the format.
The formatting is quite difficult to learn. It's kind of a steep learning curve, but once you know it, it's pretty manageable.
But the learning curve is steep. And then some learning for the reader as well. Because they need to know what, like, int means.
I feel like it's probably like chess. I've never played chess, but like, you have to learn everything, but once you do, you've unlocked a whole new world for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Except, if it's not as emotional, is it that much of a world?
True that. Once again, depends on the writer.
Yeah. Why do you think people
However,
don't read screenplays that much?
Probably because they're usually made into a film, and they're like, well, I'm just going to watch the film. It's easier to consume.
Yeah, it's almost like a cultural thing. And yeah, the format does look weird. It doesn't really feel like how a story should look.
It is quite fun to learn, though, once
Yeah.
you like... That's just a personal thing. I like writing screenplays, personally. I see it as a nice challenge.
But fun to learn is not a factor for what makes a good storytelling medium.
Absolutely.
So I'm thinking either okay or great.
Okay or great? I feel like I'm leaning more towards okay, just because of
Let's
the
go
accessibility
okay.
issues.
Yeah, accessibility issues.
Although
it's
it
not...
pains me.
Yeah. Like, it seems cool. I've thought of, like, I'll write a story just in screenplay format and, like, put it on AO3 and never expect it to be a film. Like, that could be cool, but no, that's a very rare thing to do, which you should take into account. Like, obviously, like, there are limits. It's not quite what you think of when you think, like, I'm going to read a story.
They're underrated, but maybe not that underrated.
Yeah, a little underrated. Poetry as a storytelling medium.
Ooh. Now,
Shakespeare be
this
like.
is where my bias comes in.
Yeah,
I am a poet through and through.
yes. Why do you think, or do you think it's poetry is a good storytelling medium? And if so, why? And if not, why, I guess. But I think you do.
I have read some very good narrative poems. However, I've also tried to write a narrative poem, and
Yeah.
my god, poetry is very concise. That's the thing about it. You have to be very condensed. It pays off to be condensed. Brevity is very important within poetry. If you wanted to write 3,000 words, you'd write a novel, you'd write a short story. Poetry,
Really? Isn't like Paradise Lost like a really long poem that's a narrative?
I have never read Paradise Lost.
Me neither, but I've heard of it. And then I read Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, which is also like very old, like older than Shakespeare. And it's like probably definitely like 10,000 words at least in his poetry. And he rhymes the whole time. Or she, I don't know who wrote it. It's actually like anonymous. They don't know who wrote it, but so I
That
think it
might
can
be
be
due to
long.
the fact that it can be, but these days I feel like a lot of poetry is just shorter.
Yeah. I don't know any like long poetry that's like come out recently that's like popular at all.
No, poetry is often seen as just something that's very bygone, old, which I feel like we should definitely change because poetry is just so good. But as a storytelling medium,
Well, important to
generally I say if
clarify.
you
What
go ahead.
what differentiates a poem that's a narrative poem from just a funny sounding novel or a funny sounding short story?
The difference between poetry and prose is a debate that I have heard about and I am frankly very scared of.
Is there like a basic idea that you have?
Honestly, the lines are very thin and I
Yeah.
don't know if they exist at all. It is very confusing because there are a lot of outliers. There's been a
Yeah.
lot of very experimental poets and a lot of very experimental prose writers.
Mm-hmm. I'd also say, like, if we, this is a tough one. If we bring it back to just like what makes a good storytelling medium, accessibility. I guess it's perfectly accessible as much as a novel, but I just think like I
Yeah.
always feel personally like something being a poem, which like I don't know, I feel like there's more emphasis on kind of the way it's written and kind of experimenting with that. It puts distance.
Absolutely.
I feel it puts distance between you and the story itself.
You do have to do a bit more work to understand a poem, usually. But
Yeah.
is that a good or a bad thing? For accessibility, bad.
Yes. Do you think that can improve any of the categories?
What are you referring to?
So okay,
Like-
the fact that okay, a hard to understand poem, if your thing is hard to understand, does that make does it make the accessibility better? Does it make it better at conveying? Does it make it more emotionally impactful?
Well, this is pretty subjective.
Yeah.
When it's very satisfying when you get it, I will say that. When you read a poem and you struggle to understand it a little, but then there's that click and you get it. What a beautiful moment.
Is
Whether
the
or not
actual
that
like
click
message
comes.
more strongly received for you?
I don't know. I do feel like poetry is very nice in that it really, a lot of the times it puts things in vignettes
What does that mean?
and like smaller focus. You know how in cameras
Okay, yeah.
there's like vignette lenses and it's like the edges are kind of blacked
Oh.
out, blurred a little?
I didn't know that was to put more focus. I just thought it like looked cool.
I don't know. Vignettes generally put more focus onto
This
a
shows
very
like my
certain
visual
thing.
inexperience.
No, it's vignettes is generally a term in poetry. Maybe it's just because of classes for me. I learned it through
That's
classes,
I don't have as much formal training. But
whereas I have maybe not too much.
okay, so poetry
have
makes the
much.
focus tighter, but Chance a Short Story do the same.
Poetry focuses even more than a short story,
Really?
I'd say. Yes, because you have lines and you have stanzas, and it's generally very condensed.
That only applies to some poetry, though. But I guess the fact that it applies to any at all gives it a little boost.
For
Yeah.
storytelling, poetry, for me, writing poetry, I focus more on emotions and not plot.
Yeah.
If I have
Okay.
a plot,
We should wrap this one up.
Normally
So
I
I'm
don't.
thinking probably great, or maybe even okay.
great or okay. Yeah. Definitely not best.
I say I would read it. I would love a story with poetry in it, but if the whole thing is a poem, I'd be less inclined to read it, less inclined to write it. So if it's down to me, I'd definitely put it in okay.
I've read some good poems that convey good stories, but I do think that sometimes it is a little hard to understand, even as a poet myself. I don't think I'm particularly good at reading poetry,
Yeah.
and I do need to like think about it a lot. But
Poetry
is that a good or
above
bad
or
thing?
below screenplay?
Probably maybe around the same level for me,
Okay.
which feels blasphemous because I'm a poet.
Yeah. Okay, live theater. You just saw theater the other day.
I just saw it literally yesterday,
What do you see?
so I'm
For the
very
audience?
biased
'Cause I know, but
at the moment.
what did you see? 'Cause-
I'm a theater kid. I saw Hamilton,
Yeah.
and it was so good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it's for accessibility for theater. I will say, I'm really bad at like hearing what they say. Like I think personally, I found myself like confused in theater like more often than in other mediums.
Absolutely. And then, and then
The
obviously,
price.
it's so expensive.
Yeah. And it's for the artists as well. Like, good luck getting that produced.
Oh my god. Literally in Broadway, if you make millions, you're still losing money.
Oh my god, that is crazy.
But that's Broadway, not like local theater. Local theater, much more accessible than Broadway. Still
at your
quite
university,
difficult.
but still very competitive. You don't need to compete with anyone to write a book, to get it published, yes, but just to write. Whereas to like make a theater thing happen, like it's gonna be a wild ride.
Production is much more difficult than film, I will say, just because film,
Really?
you record it, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
For theater, you do it live.
Yeah, very
And
demanding on the
that's-
actors.
I've been in quite a few productions, I'd say, more than the average person, unless you're a theater kid. Wow, it was a doozy every time. But at the same time, that made it super rewarding, at least for the performers
Yeah.
and like the people who work on it.
And theater, it also like it limits how you can convey a story because like just the audience is looking from like just wherever they are for the whole time. You have to like how much can you do with like the props you have? Your budget is like really going to be deeply intertwined with that.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of limited to like certain genres even, just like an action theater thing would be like you can do it, but definitely the budget will be big, the demand on the people will be big.
And then, if you really want to do action, good luck. You've heard of the Spider-Man musical, yeah?
Yeah. Oh my god, where they had like the trapezes all over the place, but people were getting stuck. And also even that, like the story behind that is a rabbit hole, so you should go down it. I guess you already have.
Mm-hmm.
But
What a absolute nightmare to
Yeah.
run a theater show.
what is the advantage?
When you're in there and you see it, god damn is it special.
Yeah, it's really cool. Honestly, I don't know if it's like telling the story better though. Like it's a cool experience, but it's still like the same story. I feel like could rarely.
However, I do feel like the emotional resonance, like when it's live, because every performance is going to be unique. There's going to be minor differences just because actors will say things different what a difficult word to say. Annotations.
Yeah, that annotation might be messing up.
And yes, theater is special and I love it, but wow, is it kind of bad.
Yeah.
Once again, blasphemous for me as a theater kid to say.
Personally, I'm feeling like the number one, like the highest thing in okay.
Between okay and bad for me, which is
Really, it's the word bad. Better than poetry?
it's so special, but all of the technical difficulties that can occur within it just make me like very hesitant towards it.
Better or worse than poetry?
Better than poetry exclusively because of just how special it is when you're sitting in the audience.
Also, you could have poetry in theater if they just like say poems.
That's kind of what slam poetry is.
In a way, yeah, but a lot simpler and definitely more accessible. Musical theater.
Musical theater.
We've covered a lot of the what's there already. Just the advantage
I
is
love
there's
musicals.
music.
I love musicals so
I
much.
could get into some musicals.
Once again, just saw Hamilton. When the harmonies hit, they hit.
Yeah.
When it's live. You feel it in your soul. You feel the vibrations of like just the acoustics bouncing off of the theater. Maybe like the speakers playing cannon sounds and you feel it in your bones and you're like, God damn, I'm in the middle of the action. It's so immersive.
And yeah, I guess that tells the story better in the sense of just maybe even less conveys and more like just the emotion.
But yikes, is it difficult to make a musical?
Just an additional layer of like difficulty on top of all the theater stuff we just talked about. And I always find one thing. On one hand, I think musical lyrics are generally like some of the best lyrics. I don't know why, like they're just trying harder or something, but they always like the rhymes are so clean, and it's generally pretty clear. The cultural references and like pop culture references they make can be kind of tough, but generally like musicals, the lyrics always like get stuff across really concisely and a lot of emotion. That's really impressive.
However, there is one thing that I do want to mention, and that is
Yeah.
musical soundtracks. That is generally how most people consume content related to musicals, unless you are living in New York and or rich and or very into illegal activity.
Mm-hmm.
Slime tutorials.
Slimy activity.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it's difficult to understand the plot when you're just listening to the album.
Yeah, it goes by
Unless you're
fast.
listening to Hamilton.
Even Hamilton, I found it kind of difficult to follow things. And my dad saw it for the first
Hamilton-
time live, and he didn't really know what was happening.
Yeah. Hamilton is unique amongst musicals in that there is very little dialogue between songs. But if
I don't know
you're
how unique that
looking
is.
at
I think
something,
that's kind of established thing. Like Cats
I've
is the
seen
same.
more musicals. I've seen more musicals that have dialogue between than not, I'd say.
Okay.
For example, Dear Evan Hansen.
Mm-hmm.
Dear Evan Hansen, first of all, whole can of worms in and of its own right. What a musical, whether that is a compliment or an insult,
Yeah.
is up to you.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, they have a whole term for musicals with only music, where it's like sung through musicals. So I feel like it can't
Yeah.
be that rare of a thing. But like generally, you were saying.
It's not too rare. But when I listen to Dear Evan Hansen or something like The Prom or Be More Chill, where I know I'm missing a lot of context in between the songs, it's like, what is going on? I can vibe to the music, but I'm not gonna get the full context and I'm not gonna get the full story.
Yeah, and then even
I
live,
have
it's like
to-
hard to hear and follow.
Like Dear Evan Hansen, I really had to just look through the Wikipedia page to
Yeah.
get what's happening.
And even if
Where
you
would you put
understand it perfectly, that's just pretty good.
Hamilton, I've listened to it a million times. I know everything that's happening, and it hit really good. But if I didn't know what was going on, I feel like it'd probably suffer quite a bit.
Yeah, it would just be like cool music, cool flows and rhymes. Like not really
I've never
a story.
seen a theater show. I've never gone into a theater show blind, in that I've never seen something that I didn't already listen to the soundtrack to.
Yeah.
So
That's pretty normal.
Yeah.
Okay, is musical
I'm
theater
doing that
better
this
or
summer.
worse than non-musical theater?
When it hits, but sometimes it can be pretty hard to hit.
So would you put it on like roughly
Probably-
the same level?
Probably the same level, but worse than live theater, just like regular plays.
Okay.
Also, much because of the budget and the technical issues, because oftentimes you don't have to have a band, but if you choose to have a band, that's a whole can of worms.
Yeah, and then if you choose to like have it just playback, that's kind of lame.
At the same time, even with playback, there's still going to be issues.
Yeah.
I would know.
Okay, themed attractions. Which what does that refer to?
Ooh. Theme attractions. I wrote in our document, i.e. Disney World, Omega Mart, Harry Potter World. It's
Like live stuff, kind of like environmental storytelling in the real world around you.
Yeah, and also part of that might be something like attractions, such as rides at Disney.
Hmm. I don't know that much about this,
I don't
honestly.
think-
I don't like go to this ever.
I've been to Disney World, because my parents are Disney adults.
Sick.
Yeah.
Do they tell good stories and do they tell them well?
Environmental storytelling wise, yeah, they tell good stories. Does the story come through to me? Not really.
Okay.
I've been to Avatar World at Disney, and I still cannot tell you what happens in the movies of Avatar. Not good, but very cool, but also very expensive, both
You're
for
not
consumer and
accessible?
creator.
And I feel like the value is really more just the vibe than a story. Especially Omega art,
There's
I
no
was saying
emotion.
earlier. I think there's
Yeah.
emotion. Just like the emotion is like whoa, or like oh I'm scared, or like
Okay.
I don't think it would
It's
make you
more
cry.
awe.
Maybe out of fear, but not like to like sadness really.
Yeah. But it's cool.
So this is storytelling.
Don't-
I think we can put it in bad.
Yeah, bad.
Would you put it in worst?
You know what? I might be worse just because I've never been to a theme park and understood the story of what's happening.
Okay, yeah. Worse. I think visual art is better because it can be more clear and you can sit there for as long as you want.
Hey man, themed attractions, very cool.
Storytelling though,
Nor.
yeah.
Not good.
Music, not as part of a
Music.
musical or anything. Just album from an artist, especially concept albums like Pink Floyd's The Wall.
This could also
or
cover
To Pimp a
songs.
Butterfly, or one song, Taylor Swift's Shizzle.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Or basically any folk song.
yeah, a lot of country songs, a lot of rap songs. It can be pretty cool. I mean, a lot of time, like I personally like don't listen to lyrics as much when I listen to music. Like I'm there for the music, and it can go over people's heads a lot. And especially if you're performing live, like nobody cares about the lyrics.
Yeah, you're just there for the vibes.
Yeah, but it is cool to be
I
on like the
do like
Genius
to-
page, like nerding out.
I do look at Genius pages a lot. I look at lyrics quite often, and I generally do get the story. Generally, I feel like the writing is less complex than poems, so it is much more accessible.
Mm-hmm. But I
Music
think
is kind of basically just poetry. If you're talking about like stories, music is just poetry, but like with a soundtrack.
it is, but I feel like music, the lyrics are a lot of the time easier to understand, and more for like a modern general audience. I think
And you
that I
also
will
get
say.
a lot through just. Sorry.
Okay, I think once you step outside of musicals in terms of like storytelling with songs, like the writing lyric quality like drops.
Unless you're like Taylor Swift.
Arguably, yeah. But with musicals, I think
But-
like the lyrics are always so cohesive and concise and just like direct, whereas like just
Because they have
random
a plot to
artists
tell.
tougher. What were
The
you
thing is,
saying?
do
Yeah.
you think. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yes. You do get a lot out of the atmosphere of music.
Yes.
Just like, you get the tone through the vibes, unless it's one of those songs that just sounds really happy, but is actually like hella depressing.
Yeah, but
Which
then
I
even that it
love.
brings like kind of a thematic element to the table.
Yeah. Might music be better than poetry?
I think so, yeah. And probably better than theater because more accessible. Like you can make a song in your bedroom. I think better than screenplay too.
Oh, better than screenplay. I would say below screenplay, personally.
Yeah, I can vibe with that. And we've been going for almost an hour. We should run. So yeah, I'm happy
Oh,
with that.
yikes.
Music is okay.
Audio drama.
Yeah, audio drama. Interesting. I don't like consume this much at all, but it's cool. It's pretty accessible because you don't have to make visuals. I mean, I guess some people would rather make visuals though. It depends on your skill set.
Sound effects? Woo.
It's cool. So many royalty-free sound effects, and that's more accessible than like royalty-free art because art needs to be like specific, but sound effects are more general, so you can find that for free much easier.
Yeah, if you're doing a horror thing and you can just find a chainsaw sound, it's a chainsaw sound. It's easier to do Foley.
Yes. And then I guess like without visuals, like you need to work to imply what's going on. Unless you're creative and it's like the whole thing is a phone call or something, so it's like it actually made sense to be just audio.
Yeah. Man, audio drama's kind of tough, though.
Like what would you critique about audio drama?
Well, first of all, it is hard to convey narrators and oh Jesus, I hit my mic.
You're good, it sounds fine. Hard to convey narrators.
It's hard to convey inner thoughts, but then again, no more than, say, a movie.
I feel like I would mind narration less in an audio drama than a movie.
Yes, I've listened to like an audio drama, and it did feature quite a bit of narration.
Yeah, just without like any visual, it's like pretty tough to imply what people are feeling.
Once again, it kind of comes down to the quality of the actors.
Yeah, it's hard to do right. But it can be neat
Hard.
when done right. but not like mind blowing. I think in as far as mediums go.
I do feel like I should listen to some more just because they're cool.
Yeah, I'm thinking like better than theater, but worse than music. Okay, oral storytelling. Just
Oral
like around the
storytelling.
campfire, or just like literally like on Discord with your friends, like, hey, here's what happened to me today.
What I'm
Or maybe
thinking
on
personally
stage.
is like, I was thinking bedtime stories.
Bedtime stories? Yeah, that too.
You
Oral
know, when
storytelling.
like when you're 4 or 5 and like your mom comes in and you're like I can't sleep, and your mom's just like, okay, well here's the story. My mom had this story that she made up, and like she told me it like probably a few times. My parents have like a few like set stories that they like to tell me. They haven't told me in years because like I'm old now. But
Grandma.
yeah,
Yeah, I think oral storytelling, technically, it's like the same as a novel, which is just words. But I think, like, if we think about what are the characteristics and what actually comes to mind, generally a lot shorter and simpler and just more like colloquial in the language.
I feel like this definitely is the oldest medium that we have
Yeah.
on our list, and it's the one with the most storied tradition.
Objectively, the least immersive, I think.
Oh, I was gonna say that, like, it's quite a vibe.
In terms of immersion, though, like, if you have
Immersion.
sound effects going and stuff actually happening, like, I think it's very hard to argue that that won't get you more into things.
You
And
know
then
what?
even,
Maybe I'm just really nostalgic for my mom telling me bedtime stories.
mhm.
Ooh,
It's kind of neat that, like, kind of everybody does oral storytelling when they just talk about their life.
yeah. I will say, accessibility is free.
Yeah, it's completely accessible. If you can talk, you can do it. If you can hear words, which everybody kind of learns to do unless you're like raised by animals, then you can do it. And it
Yeah.
conveys. It's cool that you can use your body language, and it can be really fun to be doing different voices. But it's just limited because you're like one person. I guess technically it could include multiple, but like in practice, not really.
Emotionally impactful, I will say, if my friend tells me a story about like a tragedy, I was late for the bus, and then I broke my window, and then I broke my nose, and then my toothbrush fell, like I'm gonna be like invested. I'm gonna be like, oh god damn, I feel so bad for you.
Yeah. Would you have? Is that because they're your friend?
Probably.
Okay. But I guess since it's like human to human, like even with a stranger, it would be kind of like, wow,
Yeah.
what if I just met someone?
Or oral storytelling, I will say, might be one of the most human mediums.
How is it inhuman to write a novel?
It's not inhuman. I'm just saying that it is uniquely empathetic.
Yeah, there's that. Okay, is a oral storytelling better than a screenplay or worse?
You'd put it in okay. I don't know. I'd
No,
put
it should be
in,
above, but like the screenplay is just in the middle. It should still be like if it's better than screenplay, maybe it's a great. Um,
it could be a great. I feel like this counts a lot under just like knowing the histories, because
I mean, historical
most
importance
of
is
our
not on our list.
historical importance is not on our list.
Like, is it accessible? Extremely. Does it convey? You can ask questions unless it's on a stage, then it would be kind of weird to do that. But generally,
Raise your hand.
a lot of time, I don't think that people really do that. But if it's your
Yeah.
friends or like any other situation, definitely. So is it accessible? It's very accessible, very clear, pretty emotional. It can be emotionally impactful, but I feel like less oral stories have like really, I'm really like deeply invested in than like most of everything else.
This
What
one
about
is
compromise?
tough.
And it's like the number one. Okay, better than screenplay.
Yeah, number one. Okay.
Okay, a choose your own adventure. Which I believe this. Oh god, I have CIYA twice. Okay, I believe
God.
this would probably imply text only.
Yeah, text only. Otherwise, we'd put it under like game format or visual novel format.
Yeah, but it's just like stories where you can choose the direction it goes, like those old books, and then more modern like visual novels, with
Text-based
no
adventures.
visuals, text-based adventures. Yeah. Okay, in practice. Okay, so it's kind of like the starting point is like it's like a novel because it's like prose, which we've discussed. So in terms of like the choice, what does that add? In practice, sometimes nothing, because people just they're too lazy to actually make things make a difference. But that's not necessarily a problem, because just feeling like you have an influence can add a lot for your first playthrough, at least.
Definitely. It is fun to like see branching pathways and wonder, what might have been different if I did that. And also, it utilizes my favorite point of view, second point of view.
Second person is your favorite?
Yeah, I don't know why, I just love
You're
it.
a fanfiction edit.
No. Listen, if I read fanfiction, I never read, like, anything that's reader insert.
Oh, dear.
But, like, for literally anything else but fanfiction, I love second person.
Oh, dear. I mean, I feel like if it has to be
weird.
you, then the protagonist ends up, like, generic a lot of the time.
Yeah, that is true. But NPCs usually do have, like, a lot of character.
I guess. That's strange. I feel like in practice, like, there's, like, the best novels, I feel like the best choose-your-own adventures in practice just don't compare. And it's hard to put my finger on why, because, like, it seems like they would have just as much potential. And if you use the, like, choosing thing well, then it can be, like, really cool.
Maybe it's just because we haven't seen a lot of choose your own adventures. Not a lot of people use the medium very much, which I feel like gets into accessibility. How easy is it to make one and to consume one?
Yeah. I don't know. It's, like,
I do know of a software to make it. I've never experimented with it before. I feel like I want to in the future, but
yeah,
I haven't gotten around to it.
Like, I've read amazing stories that are, like, branching, but it's like, it would be like visual novels. And there's no reason that shouldn't be, like, really good if it's a CYOA. It's just like, I haven't seen that.
It's probably easier to make than a visual novel, just because visual novels obviously include visuals, versus this is just text.
Yeah. And this is tough, because, okay, if we just go off to the theory, I think it might be, like, the best one, but that just feels so wrong.
Yeah, it just... No. Purely on vibes, I gotta put it in at least, like... I don't think it's very great either. Maybe it's just because I can't think of a single one that really stands out to me.
Yeah.
How much of this is bias?
Yeah, there could be a ton of bias. I mean, the fact that there has never been
in theory,
one that
it's good.
Yeah, in theory it's good. In practice, it's like not. It's just like none stand out to me really. I think this is one where like we've got to make a decision. I think like even if I think about trying to make a CYOA, something about it is like it seems very like the result won't be good. So I think this is one where I just like this might be invalid, this might be illogical, but like I think we can put it like just at the worst and okay, just because alpha vibes mostly.
Alpha vibes, I do feel like poetry is before it.
Poetry were even worse. Wow. Okay.
No, I mean poetry is before it.
Oh, like if you're going this way. Okay.
Yeah, cool. Poetry is better.
Memes. Let's go.
Memes. I feel like there's a lot of great storytelling in memes.
It is. It's one of the most concise, and a lot of like interesting tropes. Like, it's just fascinating to have like text pop up on the screen or like crazy effects go on, and for that to just be a thing. Like that's if you do that in the very accessible, because like so many people are just like very used to them. Imagine like a meme in the 90s. Like, it would be a surrealist film.
Memes are definitely the language of the people, if you know what I mean.
They are. And the emotional impact, like memes can make people really angry. Should a meme make you cry? Personally, a meme has never made me cry.
A meme hasn't made me cry unless it has, in which case I'm lying. But I can't remember a meme that made me cry.
I think a lot of memes that would, they like reference something else, which I don't think that should really count.
Memes are very referential, that's the thing.
Yeah. So the accessibility is great for everybody. It conveys clearly.
Memes are generally very, very succinct.
Yeah.
Because, once again, internet algorithms, everyone on the internet has ADHD or something.
Pretty much.
Or at least very short attention spans. Less than a goldfish at this point.
Mm-hmm. Is a meme better or worse than oral storytelling?
Ooh.
Trying to have equal, because like having a friend...
I don't see a lot of storytelling within memes, though. That's the thing. It's just like... I don't think a meme makes me think hard enough about it to wonder about the story and to convey
Yeah.
more emotion than like a slight exhale.
I mean, Stretches Love, Stretches Life is a story. Or like, that thing you sent me yesterday where it's like, there's no way we can really communicate this well to the audience, but just like, you remember with like the car and she's like doing cat call, but then she pulls out like the Uno reverse card, like, it's a story.
Yes, that one. I do feel like it's a story, yeah, but it just feels so referential, and I don't think memes could stand on their own, and that's a huge detriment to storytelling. Memes inherently are referential.
Well, if it references real life, then it's as good as anything else on the list.
But it does stand on the work of a lot of other mediums, like film.
Often, but it doesn't have to. But I guess we are taking the practice into
Often.
account. I think if you try to make like a really serious story and like tell it in a meme, or even like a long comedy, like it would be very weird. Like that wouldn't even be a meme anymore.
Most people don't even consider memes to be a storytelling medium, and I feel like that says something about it.
Do better or worse than CYOA? I think still better. Maybe
I
worse.
feel like I might put it in bad.
You know what? Yeah, let's put it in bad.
I just feel like memes don't make you think hard enough about them to justify them being a good story.
Yeah. ARGs, alternate reality games. What is an ARG, Francis? You would know.
An ARG is an alternate reality game. You just said it.
No, but like explain it if someone didn't know what it had never heard of that, like how would you explain it?
An ARG is basically a transmedia phenomenon where it exists as something. It pretends that it's real. I don't know how else to say it. It pretends that it's real.
What is it like doing an ARG in practice?
Well, oftentimes they involve a lot of code breaking and an air of mystery for the audience involved.
And searching for stuff like around the world and the internet, right?
Yeah. This covers, I feel like something kind of similar is like geocaching.
I'm vaguely familiar, yeah.
Scavenger hunts.
Mm-hmm.
Worldwide scavenger hunts.
Okay, so as a story, I have very little experience. I've never like seen an ARG through to the end.
I haven't really participated in ARGs. However, I know a lot about them because I read and watch video essays, write-ups about them.
Yeah.
Because they're just fascinating to me as a phenomenon.
Yeah. How are the
But I don't have the brain skills to decode anything. So.
Yeah. How are the... Okay, so not that accessible because it's so hard. How is the emotional impact? Would an ARG make you cry?
Out of frustration, maybe.
But not with a story?
Probably not, I'd say.
Should an ARG have like a strong message?
Definitely, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely a strong story. The narrative is just... I feel like a lot of narratives are quite good within ARGs.
I do feel like with the lack of
basic and
accessibility...
cliche sometimes.
And then also you'll get so caught up in solving it that you'll like be less emotionally invested in what it's actually telling you.
I agree, yeah.
I think it would be like one lower than memes.
One lower, I'd say above memes.
Okay. Still in bad?
Yeah, I do think bad. However, I do feel like it's very fun and we should incorporate more elements from ARGs in everything.
Yeah. Elements from ARGs are probably better than just a whole ARG.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Tabletop roleplay as a storytelling medium, like Dungeons and Dragons.
We're so biased.
Cthulhu. Very biased. We're both huge D&D people. I mean, it's pretty good, like getting your own character involved, and if like a good DM who will like put stuff around your character and work it in and around like a central theme, which is what I kind of try to do. Maybe I succeed, maybe not, but I like that can be like very powerful. Thank you. Like that can really like affect you deeply and personally.
Oh, definitely. I have. Have I cried over D&D before? Probably.
Mm-hmm. I've heard about a lot of people crying. Personally, I haven't. I hope someone makes me cry someday.
I will say it has made me very angry before.
Mm-hmm.
And also very happy. But a lot of times very angry, mostly thanks to Simon.
Oh my god. Okay, what are the... So the advantages, like how personal it is and it's with your friends?
Yes. A lot of it is because you make the story yourself. You dictate everything about it, and that is if you're into it, very fun.
Yeah, what are the disadvantages?
I feel like accessibility is one because
A little hard to learn.
books.
You do not need the books. I really don't
You
think
do not need the
books.
books, but like still you gotta find a source for all your information.
Yeah.
And there is a learning curve
Yes.
within both DMing and playing.
Yeah, and I find that in practice that definitely makes things suffer a lot. Just it's like amateurs making a story.
Yeah. Emotionally impactful, definitely. Because you're the ones dictating the story, you're so invested in it.
Yeah, and it pretty much conveys. You can even this is one of the 100% of the time you can always ask for clarification. Because it's literally your
And
friends.
you should ask for clarification.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like it's better than oral storytelling because it has other elements that just boost it, but all the advantages of oral storytelling. So great.
I feel like it's
What do you
great.
think? Yeah, great.
I put it in
Live
great.
action roleplay, which is instead of
Live
having
action
just sitting around a
roleplay.
table with dice or whatever, like you're doing it yourselves with your bodies in person, acting
As a
stuff
storytelling medium, worse than TTRPGs because when you're sitting at a tabletop, you can actually focus on things. Versus live action roleplay, much more emotionally impactful because you're basically just like in there.
Yeah, it hits a lot of
But
our
can
points,
you
but it's not really the same as a story almost.
Yeah, you're focused a lot. I feel like you might be focused a bit more on mechanics.
Yeah, or on just like the fun of like being a character, like it's more vibes than story.
Vibes and story, I agree. But maybe this is because we haven't participated in a
True.
LARP.
Yeah, we have never done that. I feel like maybe I'd
might
put it like
in bad.
yeah, but the best bad because it is pretty cool.
Maybe worse than ARG.
I still feel like because it's like you're role playing and you're playing natural characters, it's like much more clear than an ARG, which gives it an advantage.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, dude, Ted's plays role play over like Discord or whatever on the My Little Pony role play on like some obscure forum when you were a child. That kind of shizzle.
If you were growing up on the internet, you've probably done this before.
Yeah. Okay, so same. It's definitely very amateurish. There can be bad grammar. There can be good grammar. It varies a lot.
The difference between a tabletop roleplay and a text-based roleplay like this is that there are rules. And I feel like the rules help a lot within tabletop roleplay to make sure, like, things don't go off the rails. Versus roleplay, it's very easy to make a Mary Sue. I would know.
That can be a problem.
I've made many a Mary Sue.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, I feel like I've always like planned stuff out a lot and like discussed what we want it to be. So like it doesn't become as much of a problem for me, but it's definitely a thing. And it's more about living out just being a character than like telling a like story that's like a plot.
Yeah, and I feel like within the role-playing I did as a kid, our plots were very loose.
Yeah, like it's not really like you're not sending a strong message with that.
We probably had like 10 different timelines or something.
Yeah. What would it be like if you did really try to like okay, this is the theme, we're gonna like send this message, but then okay, if you're focused on that, then you're almost making the story, not experiencing it, which will take it away from like the way you're supposed to enjoy a story. Really,
That'd be closer to co-authoring a story or doing, like, I know some of our friends do like roleplay outside of games for their D&D characters.
Yeah.
And I feel like that falls under this. And some of their stuff has been incredible.
But it's more co-authoring then, right?
That might be more so co-authoring. However, because you're in... Okay, there's a thin line between co-authoring and role-playing, I'd say.
That's true.
But I definitely feel like they were definitely role-playing because they were going... Number one, because they call it roleplay. Number two, because they're going in with the intention of fully acting out this character and thinking, most of all, what would this character do, and not thinking about the plot as much.
Yeah. I think definitely I would be more emotionally invested in this than a choose your own adventure in general. That's been my experience. Yeah. It's like more nebulous, but it's a choose your own adventure can get pretty nebulous too, with like trying to incorporate all the branching, and it just kind of can end up being like kind of random. Better or worse than poetry?
Better or worse than poetry? Maybe depends on how old you are.
Yeah.
I think, once again, I'm largely biased because as a kid, I did not do a good job with mine.
Yeah. It seems kind of insulting to put like kids on the internet to do better than a poetry, but so I'm excited. I'm happy with is that good, you think?
Yeah, at the same time, I've seen what our friends do, and it's good.
But I think it falls a bit outside of text-based roleplay the more it gets like that.
Mm-hmm.
Picture books.
Picture books. Not graphic novels, not comics, picture books.
Not visual novels, picture books. Okay, a lot of time of the picture books, it's like they describe the scene and they show it. Which I think is redundant. So like just pick one.
A lot of times it's for kids.
Yeah, all the time for children, which can be good stories, but I guess more people in the world are. Actually, I was gonna say more people in the world are kids than not kids. Or are not kids than kids. I don't know if that's true, but
No, that's true.
Oh, really? Cool.
Like, think about it. The average age is like adults, right? The average age is like most people are older than 40, right? Wait.
Just over 30 years.
Just over 30, exactly.
Yeah.
But then you're 18. But then there's a lot of seniors. But then those seniors are going to die off soon. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So I think picture book is really a case of like, in practice, it's kind of wacky, kind of weird, not that good. But in theory, it could be really good because you get like an amazing medium between like having as much text as you want and having visuals so that it can be more direct.
Even for kids' books, like, they've got their own unique charm. I read a kid's book in a class recently. It was good.
And it had pictures?
Yeah, it was a straight up picture book. It was like legitimately for like 6-year-olds.
Yeah. Okay. That would be pretty cool, like online, if you had like some pictures to accompany like your story that you're writing, and you made them yourself.
Yeah.
That would be a cool project.
Something to think about.
Yeah. Okay, so I think is a picture book better than a novel because it can have visuals?
Feels
just,
wrong to put it in.
Yeah, I feel like
It
in
might be
theory yes,
great
but
for
in
me.
practice no.
I feel like
I mean,
I don't think I really go to picture books for the narrative.
what do you go like for the arts? You go to them?
Mostly vibes, I think.
Okay.
I'm just thinking once again a lot of kids books because it's mostly kids books that are picture books. I can't think of many like books for an older audience that wouldn't be a comic.
Yeah. I find it pretty hard to imagine like a life-changing, really emotional novel that's just like great work and it's like pictures throughout.
Illustrations, maybe? No, illustrations and pictures are the same thing. What am I saying? Like, illustrations between every chapter, maybe? But I'd still
That's
call that
fine.
a novel, not a picture book.
Yeah. Like picture book has to
Picture
have like
books.
pictures like very much throughout the whole thing.
Colloquially referred to as kids' books, I still feel like it's mostly kids' books.
Yeah, I've never
But
even
for
seen an
kids,
adult
it's
picture.
great.
How about we put it in great because the potential is so good, but just in practice it's weird.
Yeah.
Are picture
But
books better than oral storytelling and screenplays?
I feel like it's not as good as oral storytelling.
Why?
Oral storytelling is pure storytelling at its finest. Not at its finest, but pure storytelling. It feels like storytelling concentrated.
Honestly, to me, that's more novels. Just like bodyline. I don't know. We could put it in okay below oral storytelling. I don't really mind that.
I might want to move oral storytelling up to great. Because I'm just thinking about it. I'm like, But
I don't know. What do we say were the disadvantages? It's just like, okay, one thing, it's like one person, like I feel like I get a lot more out of just seeing the story itself rather than having it be filtered through a human being who looks a certain way and has a certain voice. Maybe they do multiple voices,
Paraphrasing.
but they're still one person. So what do you think?
Ooh, what a toughie. I want to put it in great personally. But I think I'll leave that up to you.
Okay, I mean, at the top of okay is very close to great. So we'll see what else we put in great, and if it would be like better than some of those things, then we can move it. Then this is very dynamic. We can always change our minds.
Yes.
Manga.
I've never read a manga.
Me neither.
Oh, why do we put it on this list then?
Well, okay, like think hypothetically, I guess it's similar to comics. It's almost the same as comics, but it's the vibe of anime, and the culture and the art style of anime. So I don't read manga because I think, like, in terms of like literature, there's just not enough text, and then it's very focused on the arts, and I'm not a visual person, so I don't. That's like the reason I don't really. And anime in general, I think kind of objectively, like even though I love that art style, it is like less like varied than other arts, which is always like the characters, especially, always trying to look the same.
Yeah. I did see a thing where it
Yeah.
says that anime characters look less like humans and more like cats if you just account for the shape of your face, and I'm like, I can't unsee it now.
Okay. Yeah. And so it's
It's
a
very
style that
funny to
really
me.
appeals to me. Like, if I drew D&D characters or my own stuff, like, it would be anime. I wouldn't even care to draw much else personally, but it's objectively just less variation, which means less kind of power to imply like different feelings. I mean, the stuff other than the
You
characters can be pretty crazy though.
you are talking to a non-weeb.
Yeah.
I have not been into anime, nor do I plan on getting into anime, even though everyone wants me to get into anime. I'm like, I know if I get into it, I'm going to be opening a can of worms for myself, and I will not be able to crawl out of the rabbit hole because, I'm just going to get very invested,
Yeah.
and I don't have time for that.
Okay, let's make it. I think to make it easier, let's do Western comics first, and then see where manga is based on that, since they're very similar.
Western comic, different from a graphic novel.
Shorter. Manga are also pretty short,
Um,
I believe.
Comics generally refer to superhero comics,
Yeah.
which I haven't really read
Yeah.
many.
Again, I just doubt its ability because it's so dependent on just like cool visuals, and there's not that much
Mhm.
text. Like I doubt its ability to really tell like a great story.
I will say a lot of comics, cough, DC and Marvel, rely on timelines in different universes, and they change a lot, and it depends on the writers and
Gets
some
messy.
of the stories. It's very messy, and there's a reason why I haven't gotten into comics, despite being kind of like a superhero nerd, and that is because, wow, is it not accessible. Number one, it's expensive.
Yeah, even my
Number
friends were
two,
saying the other day who like comics, it's hard to get into.
it's very hard to know where to start because there's just like 10 different storylines by 10 different authors.
Yeah, manga would be better in that regard because it's just like this is this series, this is this series.
Manga better than Western comics.
Really,
Because
I
have,
agree, but I don't know if that's objectively like we can say that.
I know purely because I have read write-ups about like comics culture, and based on like
Okay.
a lot of the mess is based on how the comics are messy. And by messy, I mean like messy.
Yeah. Okay. Comics are better or worse than live action roleplay?
Ooh.
Live action roleplay
Better.
more cohesive in terms of like it's one story, but then less cohesive because that's individual story might be all over the place. One comic at least will tell like a clear story.
It feels wrong to put it below live action roleplay because I know there are also some very good stories within comics.
Yeah. Okay,
And the
better or worse than
characters-
CYOA?
Ooh.
I think
Man.
better because it's still at least it's like a linear story that people aren't gonna like do weird stuff to.
No, people do weird stuff to it.
Weird stuff. I mean like they'll just
And
have
by
it messy because
people,
they're
I
trying
mean
to
the
force a branch in.
authors. I mean the authors are weird.
Like what weird?
It
What do you
gets-
mean by weird in this context?
Once again, some messed up storylines, characters being like very
Really?
varied throughout. Like there is no character consistency a lot of times.
Okay, should it be like bad, but the best bad?
I feel like
Right
yeah,
now?
best bad.
Or at least so manga. So better
Maybe
because it doesn't
maybe
have the
I am
messiness.
biased. Yeah. Once again, I don't know much about manga, but I do know a lot more about just the messy side of comics
Yeah.
because I like reading write-ups about it.
Okay, I feel like manga is like better than text-based roleplay. Worse than poetry. Are you happy with that?
Once again, haven't read a manga. I don't think I
Yeah,
have
me
much
neither.
say
Maybe
in
we
this.
shouldn't have had that. We were trying to be comprehensive with what storytelling mediums like exist. We did not really take into account what we personally have experience with, which is kind of
Yeah.
dumb. But like from what I think, like I would much rather see an anime than a manga.
I might just have to like ask my friends who have read manga.
Yeah. So for now, like keep in mind, take our manga rating with a grain of salt.
You
Graphic
know what? Maybe we
novels.
should. I have an idea. We
Yeah?
should totally just like revisit this list if we ever have a guest and get their opinions.
Yeah, that probably be more segments than the whole podcast, because I think since the list is already established, it wouldn't be that long.
Yes,
But
definitely just like, hey, look at this list. What do you agree? What do you not agree with?
yeah, and if they're a weeb, then we'd do their Mond review.
Exactly.
Okay, graphic novel.
Graphic novel.
So more variety in the art style, potentially, because... like,
I
we
have
stick to
read a
one
graphic
thing.
novel. Hallelujah.
How was it?
It was actually
And what was it?
pretty good. It was Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me by, I'm bad with names, Mariko Tamaki.
This was like a romance, right?
This is a queer romance, yes.
Yeah. So like,
Good
what
plot.
about it? Like, what did you observe about like the graphic novel style, and how was that?
I really liked how the artist really emphasized body language within
Okay.
that one. And I do feel like that is a great potential for like stories with art, is just being able to see the body language of characters.
Yeah. Okay, that would
A
apply
lot
to
of
a
times-
comic too, though.
Yeah, hands. I feel like oftentimes if you're talking superhero comics, they don't focus as deeply with that because they're more zoomed out. Graphic
Okay,
novels,
yeah.
at least this one, really zoomed in.
Yeah.
But
So
then
we say
again,
it's-
I haven't read like a whole lot of graphic novels, just
Yeah.
this one, so I'm kind of very biased towards this
Yeah.
one novel that was very good.
So there's still kind of a lack of text, right? Like it's just a dialogue and some little other bits.
Yes.
Okay. So say better than manga. Is graphic novel better than poetry? I think so, because like the body language can
Maybe,
be very
yeah.
impactful. Graphic novels or musical theater? Oh my god.
Musical theater's better, I'd say. But
Okay.
then again, I might just be biased.
Yeah, graphic novels could convey more clearly. I feel like they could be. I don't know. Could they be more impactful? I mean, the music makes it impactful. For some people, there's a disconnect. I kind of feel like better than musical theater.
Live theater?
Like where? What do you mean?
Would you put it better as live theater?
I think so, because it's more accessible, but it has all the same like body language and stuff
Yeah, it is.
and visuals.
Maybe.
Do you think better than audio drama?
I don't know. I haven't read enough. I feel like I need to read more to fully get
Yeah, let's just
an
pop it
idea
there.
of
How do you feel about that?
maybe. You know what? We can edit this list once I've read another graphic novel
Yes. Live action film.
that I have much experience in.
Yeah, I have a decent amount. Probably a bit less than the average person, because I'm not as into it, but like everybody sees a lot of movies, and they're movies that I
Mhm.
love. It's extremely accessible. I guess it costs as much money as anything, really. I mean, just more than oral storytelling. But it's not that
Unless-
expensive to go to see a movie or to get a Netflix subscription and just watch a lot.
Rising costs these days. It is getting
Right.
worse.
Rising costs of everything, though.
Rising costs of everything, but I feel like it has been emphasized within theaters. I've seen it and I've been like, "Whew,
Okay.
yikes." But then, even then, there's the whole, you've heard about Netflix's blunders.
So, like, the film, it really is accessible in terms of, like, just coming across to the audience generally, because it's pretty, like, it's just stuff happening. It looks like real life. Like, if it were actually happening, there's, like, simulating that exactly. With
Generally,
exaggerations
yeah.
and stuff, but
Live action film, I feel like, is good. Very good. Might be within best.
best. Okay, what are the
Uh,
disadvantages of live action film? Like, harder to get inside people's heads?
Yes, very difficult.
Yeah, I think it
That
has
would
more
rely-
cliches than other mediums.
Once again, kind of dependent on the offer.
Yeah, but if we go off of an average, like, it seems to
yeah.
me like the music can be similar a lot of the time. The camera angles and techniques can be very similar.
There can be a lot of very good ones. I'm thinking of Everything Everywhere.
Sure,
Delicious. Best movie. Should win Oscar.
yeah, I'll put it. We can put it in best.
We can edit it
Is
later.
there any other disadvantages? We have hard to get in
Production.
people's heads. The production it costs a lot.
It costs a lot, and if you're making like a Marvel movie, zoinks to all of the visual effects artists. You deserve better.
Yeah, very exploitative industry.
Very exploitative industry.
Yeah. I feel like a novel has a lot of the strong points, or a short story, without being so expensive. So I think maybe like top of grade. What do you think?
We can edit it later, yeah.
All right, let's put it there
We'll
for
come
now.
back to it.
Video games.
Ooh.
A lot of time the story is really bad because they just care about the
Mm,
gameplay. But like that's just because they aren't trying.
Maybe it's because I've just played a selection of games that have good story, but I'm thinking
Yeah.
like games have made me cry before. Have made me
Has a game
weep.
made me cry? I don't know. But they can be pretty emotional. So what are the advantages of it? Like the interactivity and putting you in the story can be pretty powerful. Like
Absolutely.
when all the
Even more
events are
so
happening
than
to you.
like text-based role play. Text-based role plays. Much more so than those. Tabletop, probably more immersive still, but like video
The
games are
tabletop
up
roleplay
there.
is more immersive than a video game.
Yes. At the
The
same time,
video
video
game does actually have
games,
graphics.
yeah, do have graphics.
And like full sound design and soundtrack. And like the voices are exactly what the characters would sound like.
Yeah. Unless you don't have voices.
Yeah, that's you. If it's just reading.
Accessibility. We should talk about that.
Yeah, okay, triple A is like I would never buy a triple A game personally. That's kind of a hot take, but it's just way too much money. Not accessible. But indie can be a lot more
Uh,
accessible or even free. And there can be like great like indie games have better stories, I think, in general.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Indie games, man.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they making them for like, okay, the price of like AAA games should be the cost of indie games, and the cost of indie games should be the cost of AAA games for the quality you're getting. It's insane.
I don't know. I feel like both should be the price of like between like both should be at like $30. That would be pretty reasonable.
Okay, yeah. At the same time, it's just like, for what we're getting right now, my goodness.
It is pretty subjective though. Like some people would prefer just tons of content that they can like mindlessly go through.
Yeah.
And that's not all AAA games, it's kind of a generalization, but most, a lot, maybe not even most, but a lot. And a lot of what you see that is like most in the public eye.
I don't know. What is your favorite video game?
My favorite video game is Antichamber, which, unless visual novels counts as video games, but probably not. So,
No.
yeah, Antichamber, it's kind of obscure. It's like a puzzle game. Sort of similar to Portal, I guess. But it takes place in this like very fever dream-esque like big white maze with like a lot of weird shapes and impossible geometry. And like the learning curve of like the gameplay is amazing, very little tutorials. And the atmosphere is like, it really gets to me because it like feels like a dream. And it's very abstract, very cool. Not really a story.
Because my favorite is Hades. I'd
Yeah,
say
yeah.
there's definitely a story in there.
I found the
Um,
story like not very impactful in Hades, honestly. Because there was just so
Did you-
little time focusing on it.
Did you finish the...
That's true. I played such a tiny bit of it.
Yeah.
But the bits of the
I don't
story that like definitely wouldn't hook me as a story.
know. Spoilers. When I got to the end, man, I cried.
You tried, wow.
I cried at the end when the credits were rolling. I was just sobbing. And I feel like games definitely can have a lot of emotional impact because you're going through it and there's a big time investment. But there's also a lot
Yeah,
of
it's
games that
nice
are
lines.
so focused on gameplay, i.e. Animal Crossing, which I still get so much out of.
Yeah.
But
I think after I didn't say like a consistent, maybe not. I was gonna say like focus on gameplay always weakens the story because it just like it feels like gameplay feels like strategizing and like it's not as. Maybe I would take that back. You can get emotionally invested in like, oh, I have to win this.
at the same time, there's a lot of like more relaxed gameplay. I'm
Yeah.
thinking of Spiritfarer, which I'm not done yet, but
Of
like
what?
the Spiritfarer.
I don't know that at all.
It's a game, and you are taking over for Charon in terms of you are bringing souls around, and they're dead, and I'm very bad at explaining things.
Oh, you play as like a death manager person.
Yeah, you're a death manager, and there is a lot of like managerial gameplay, and then the story hits, and I cried again.
Wow. Oh, do you know Presentable Liberty?
No.
Also very like amazing story. It's mostly just story. You're just in a prison cell and you receive letters all day, and like the letters tell like a story of what's going on in the outside world, and it's like kind of like capitalist themes, and like just a bunch of like people trying to make their way in this like really messed up world.
I feel like games have a great capacity for storytelling, and many games
Yeah.
do storytelling very well. Whether or not they choose to do it, however,
Yeah.
is
It is inaccessible for the developer because it's pretty hard to make games. You need to program.
it is
Which a
yeah.
lot of time programming is like it's like a left brain thing, and then being more creative is more right brained. And a lot of people are both, but a lot of people aren't. I definitely like I'd love to make a game that's like really atmospheric and storytelling, but like so many barriers that it's not feasible.
My dream is to get recruited by a game company to write for a game, so I don't have to like do any of the
Yeah.
actual development stuff beyond just coming up with concepts and writing
Yeah. It
dialogue.
doesn't need to be that lofty of a dream because you could hire people yourself if you earn money from something else.
Yeah.
Like a programmer and like a 3D modeler, and then I don't know, I'll do your sound design for free.
Hell yeah.
And I'd love to do that as well, like hire people. Okay, video games. It's getting kind of hard to rank things since there's so much stuff, and I mean you're trying to realize really like everything has its own like value and its own merit. Um
I feel like they're really good. I feel like they might be best. They might be like bottom of
in
best,
best?
but best. Or either bottom or best or top of great.
Okay,
I
what's
don't
harder,
know,
making
I'm
a
just
film or a game? Just so we can nail down the accessibility. I think it's harder to make
making
a game.
an indie film versus making an indie game, much harder to make a game.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to pick up like on like camera stuff than it is to pick up on film stuff. I mean video game stuff. Because I am able to create a film. I can edit it in iMovie if I so
Yeah.
desired. It's just
But a
more
game has
accessible
to
to
have
make
some like
it.
basic like programming stuff that's tough.
And I cannot program for the life of me.
Yeah. Okay, this is gonna be the golden question. What is better? Games or movies?
In terms of accessibility, films are better.
Yeah, for kind of everyone. Some more old people cannot like play games, but then they can watch movies. Like everybody watches movies.
I feel like video games might have to go under live action film.
Okay, what's better, tabletop or video game?
Tabletops can get messy.
Yeah, it's
Video
more
games can also
amateurish,
get
less
messy.
immersive.
Yeah.
So how's that?
Yeah, it feels blasphemous once again. As a big tabletop nerd. But
Yeah. Okay, I have CYO again. So again, musical
Bye.
films.
this is once again, this is more so genre than anything.
Kinda. But I mean, it's
We had
it's
a
different to
debate.
tell a story through music, and then it's different to
quite-
do that like live versus in film. This is more accessible, I think. I think we can make a musical movie, but we like to make a musical theater show would be really hard.
Yeah.
I find them
La
more
La
cheesy.
Land.
It's awkward to watch people sing on screen personally for me.
Yeah, I feel like it's mostly because of the basis. Like, you're used to watching film, like
Mhm.
live action film, no one sings. But then once you watch someone, like, break out into song, when you're not used to seeing someone break out into song on, like, the screen, unless you're, like, watching a Disney movie, then it's just like, oh wow, my suspension of disbelief. Where's it gone?
Yes. So would you say like less emotionally impactful and a bit less convey? Like a bit less for both?
Yeah. At the same time, La La Land has stuck with me, but maybe that's an outlier.
That's true, yeah.
I keep thinking of outliers.
Why did La La Land stand out?
It did kind of like break. Musicals have that problem where I just don't know how how it might look like in real life. And that kind of like ruins things for me sometimes. But like, La La Land was just so charming, man. And then
Okay.
it might have been just the story that made me cry.
Okay, so as a medium,
But Disney films are also very iconic. When it's done well, it's very iconic. But when it's not done well, it might be a yikes.
what's better, like a good, well-done musical movie, maybe a Disney film, or musical theater?
In terms of accessibility, I might have to rank it higher than theater.
Yeah, and the emotional impact. I guess you can still just as well like listen to the soundtrack and everything and get really into it.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think that's better than live theater as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of just pure accessibility.
This is so oddly specific, but musical movies are graphic novels. I was thinking about the other musical movie. I guess less body language emphasis, perhaps. You can't like look at it for as long.
God, they're just so different. I don't know how to compare them.
Yeah. Okay, what about versus audio? I think a musical movie would be better than an audio drama because it's like an audio drama and more.
Okay, you know what? I feel like this is what we should really compare it to. Musical movie versus music.
Musical movie versus music. Oh my god. I kind of like music. Okay, in practice, I feel like music is usually better because it's just more concise and cohesive and like less cringe.
Okay, we can put it there.
Yeah. Okay, Western animated films.
This ties into Disney, as we just said.
Yeah. Okay, big thing. Is that better or worse than live action? I honestly think
I think it's better.
I think it's better. Even though
I
okay,
think
in
it's better.
practice, I actually watch more live action probably. But just looking at it, like you can be more expressive. Like a story is already an exaggeration of real life. You probably won't tell a story that's exactly like real life because then people will just like live their lives and be normal. So, like you may as well exaggerate the visuals as well, and you can have the characters look however you can imply emotion through the designs of the characters.
A lot of movies these days, live action movies, are action movies. And I feel like pretty much all action movies really want to be animated movies. But animation has
Yeah.
the stigma of being kids' movies. And that's what's preventing people from not making more like action animated movies. Because I'm just thinking,
Yeah.
like, if you compare live action Spider-Man versus Into the Spider-Verse,
I do like the stories of the live action better, but it doesn't really have anything to do with animated or not.
and also I feel like animation, you just have number one, it's just more beautiful. Objectively, I feel like we might be able to say that.
Um,
Okay, maybe not objectively, but
Objectively beautiful. I mean, that's not really
on
a thing.
average, animated movies, from a composition level,
Yeah.
are better than live action.
Yeah. Okay, so we agree that the end result is better, more emotionally impactful, conveys better. But the accessibility, it is
Yeah.
easier to make live action than animation, definitely.
Costs a lot more, but I feel like it really pays off in the end. It really pays off. Think of every Disney movie you've ever watched. Just think about it.
Not many, and I'm not really into Disney, so that doesn't really work for me.
My apologies. I'm a Disney person.
Yeah. But I don't think it pays off, honestly. I think, like, okay, if I was gonna recommend someone, like, hey, should I do, like, animated or live action? And they're, like, a small indie person, and they don't quite... Like, I guess if you're an amazing artist, then you could do animated, and it wouldn't be, like, hell for you. But, like, in general, it takes a lot. You gotta draw the characters over and over. Or, like, do 3D modeling, which is complicated. I feel like it's more worth, like, live action, like, more people can do. And it
I
won't be,
agree.
like, a huge difference. I mean, it
But
is a
at the
big
same
difference, but,
time,
like...
animated movies are just so. You have to go through so many hoops and layers to get the final product that it's just so, like, I wouldn't say calculated. What's the word I'm looking for? It's very intentional. Everything is so intentional within animated movies.
I don't see how like it being harder would mean you're like thinking more about it. I mean, okay, obviously, yeah, because you need to think to how am I going to approach this, but I mean, you can work on
Everything
a
is,
script
like-
for as long as you want.
Yes, but like every single thing is so blocked out because you have to do the.
I see what you
Like,
mean,
what's it
because
called?
live action, like I could like twitch as I'm acting, and like it might not be exactly like perfectly conducive to what the story demands. Whereas
Animation
would
is
be.
very exact, and there's so many possibilities within it that live action just can't.
Do you need that level of perfection? Because I feel like you get diminishing returns. Like at a certain point, like I get the idea. I don't need it to be like exact.
I just like the stylisticness, like how stylized animation can be.
That's subjective, though.
That is
Isn't it?
subjective.
And some people wouldn't
Ooh.
connect with animation as much because like they like the real world.
Yeah, but once again, that's quite subjective. I'm
It
gonna
is, but just-
begrudgingly put it behind live action.
For accessibility.
Begrudgingly, yes.
It's really for accessibility, because I think we both agree animated has more potential.
But in terms of like pure style, And dare I say emotionally, I would put animation above.
Yeah, same. But just the accessibility, like I would much rather make a live action than an animated. Or okay, if I didn't have to draw, then I would rather make animated. Like if other
Yeah.
people would do it for me to my exact specifications, but live action so much more accessible for the creator. Anime movies.
Begrudgingly. Anime movies. Have not watched one.
I've
Once
seen
again,
some
not a
Ghibli
weeb.
movies recently. Ghibli in particular, I find the stories kind of weird, but they can be interesting. Okay, so I guess since we're casting aside subjectivity, we have to like objectively say that it's worse than animated in terms of like the style and the visuals.
Well,
Um,
I feel like there's just more possibilities within the frame of Western animated because, like, think about like the Disney style versus maybe the DreamWorks style versus maybe like the Spider-Verse style because it's kind of like launched a genre onto itself versus anime. I feel like it's quite boxy in that,
Homogeneous.
yeah, I feel like all anime, if you showed me a picture from an anime, I would be like, it's an anime. I couldn't tell you where it's from because I've never watched anime. It's an anime.
Yeah, and I mean again, I love anime. It's like my favorite style, but just looking at it objectively, it's more homogeneous. That said,
I feel like
aside from that, it has all the same benefits as Western animated.
yeah, I feel like I'd put it behind Western animated, but like it's behind it purely because anime style is so specific.
Should we factor in like accessibility in regards to like the language, or is that racist?
Well, then you'd have to factor in accessibility in regards to
Yeah, it's the
animated films
same.
being in English.
Yeah, okay, so anime film just almost as good as Western.
Yeah.
Live action television rather than film.
I don't
It's
watch a lot of live action TV.
I watch some. It's cool for it to be like that long because
Yes.
it can like stretch. You can examine the characters in so much depth, and you'd have like a big cast. Like it really feels like a world. I find a movie doesn't like immerse me in the world as much because it's so brief and contained.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and there's value to experiencing a story like over time in your life. Like overall, I think a TV show is more immersive than a film.
And also the progression, like just from like a plot-wise writing like perspective, being able to like stretch it out more instead of it being contained within an hour or two or three, it just pays off so much more.
I mean, we did also put short story above novel for its brevity, though.
Yes.
But
But I
a
feel
TV
like
show is longer
within,
than a novel.
unless you're talking like Lord of the Rings or something.
I guess, yeah. But I mean, I guess the idea is like, at a certain point, if it gets so long, then like you get new benefits of just being so immersed in the world. Whereas a novel is maybe like perfectly an average novel is maybe like perfectly long enough to be like too long for the benefits of shortness, but it's not long enough for like to like really get like super immersed in the world, unless it's a book series.
Let's talk about maybe the length of the television because I don't know. Something like Game of Thrones, which I haven't watched.
Me neither.
I feel like that might have gone on a little too long.
I feel like the critiques people have had of that is just that the story it was like about the actual story contents.
Okay, yeah.
I don't see what the downside of it being that long is if it's good throughout.
Maybe it's just a problem with like networks and just cash cows.
It can get milked pretty hard.
Hmm.
But again, like hypothetically, if it was good content throughout, then there'd be no issue. But yeah,
Live action
we should
TV.
take that into consideration.
I feel like maybe best.
Okay, so it is better than movie.
I do feel like it's better than movie, definitely, and I would put it in best because, well, it's TV.
It has
It
all
just
the like
tells
the
really good
accessibility
stories.
issues. Yeah, that's fair.
I do feel like, yeah.
Okay,
It's a high
Western
novel, though.
animated television. I guess by going by our logic, like it's easy. Just it's better.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I guess I don't know. It's kind of cool that like a lot of like live action, it's like the episodes individually can be really long. So it's like, I mean, maybe you don't like that as much, but like 20-minute episodes or like 30-minute episodes can feel a little short.
I do feel like then it forces the writers to go more into just making things overarching, which I do like. I'm thinking of Gravity Falls. very episodic, but at the same time, the overarching story was beautiful.
I mean, why does shorter episodes encourage a more overarching story?
Because you can't fit all of the content into one episode.
That's true.
Unless
I mean, I feel
you
like
do,
in
like,
practice,
parts.
it's always like the shorter shows that are more episodic.
Avatar:
Like
The
shows
Last
with-
Airbender. That's a show we've both watched, yes?
Yeah. It's like between
Fantastic.
episodic and overarching. It is really good.
Yeah. Such good storytelling. What makes it so good?
Many things, but I don't know. I think longer episodes would have been cool. Like the first 2 episodes could have been combined, and it would have been like a good episode still. And honestly, like the
sometimes I feel
last
like-
8 episodes probably could have been, or the last 4 probably could have been one thing, and that would have been cool. At the same time,
I feel like that might just be, like, constraints of networks and stuff.
still a fault of the medium, though.
Still a fault of the medium. But then again, there are Western animated shows that do have longer episodes, I believe.
Okay, I think overall we can still say it's better than live action for the visuals.
Yeah.
Because this is all very like, it's a little like less direct than like how does it actually look and come across. Okay, we're just
So
at
close
2
to being
hours,
done.
but we're close. We're almost done. Yeah. Okay, so anime television, which is the more standard way to watch anime.
I don't watch anime.
Yeah, I do. Okay, we need to cast aside subjectivity. I think the reason why I like anime so much is very subjective. It's just the styles and the themes and like the vibes appeal to me more. Where you can have like my favorite kind of vibe is like really cutesy but also really scary at the same time, and you do not get that in Western. It's very rare, but anime is like a lot of anime is like that. But if you cast aside subjectivity and kind of go based on the precedents we have set so far, anime is more homogenous in art style, but it has the benefits of like being television and long. So what's better, an anime TV show or a live action film?
I can't say. I feel like it might be anime is better than live action purely because, once again, of the length, you're able to tell more stories and you're able to get more into
Yeah.
the world building and the characters. Is it better than live action TV? You say that. Is it in best? You say that. I really don't know.
Yeah, okay, I'll put it at the top of grade. I like where it is.
Okay.
Okay, animated short films, like at the start of Disney movies. I saw one on Netflix. It was like, Of Course I Still Love You, and it was about like parents, their child like died from a school shooter, and they were like mourning. That seems like
lot
a thing
of
you would
these-
watch.
A lot of these are on YouTube, and a lot of them are very good.
Mm-hmm.
Probably underrated. Definitely
Yeah.
underrated.
So it is okay. We've talked about like animated, the advantage. We haven't talked about like the length of a short film. I just it's cool for it to be that brief. It's similar to a short story.
hmm
So what's better, like television, which is really long, or a short film, which is really short?
Dare I say, the shortness, once again, might have more of an emotional gut punch on me.
I think in practice I found the opposite. Like I need to get immersed. But I guess we put short story on the top. So if we're following our own rules,
But once again, this still goes on vibes. Partially.
on vibes, what do you mean?
Partially. Like, do you feel like it belongs there? Look inside your heart.
The animated short film belongs above everything else. Or above this. No, but okay, wait. Okay, how do you think short stories should be at the top, or should they be lower? Because they can't immerse you in the world as much.
Oh god. Short stories and novels are just... I'm making a lot of hand motions that you can't see.
Yeah. That's one thing to consider. Do you think like everybody or a lot of people would agree that longer is better because it immerses you more? I know I heard Jacksepticeye say once in a video like he prefers films because it is a contained experience and he would rather. But I don't know. Is that because of convenience?
Short films
or
are
because of its better storytelling?
contained.
Yes.
These are contained. Once again, I feel like we ranked it up there a lot because of accessibility. Because most people don't want to pick up a novel, but most people
You're right.
have the attention span for a short story.
I totally forgot about the accessibility. Animated short film is very accessible because everybody is doing that shizzle.
Oftentimes on YouTube, which is probably one of the most accessible platforms.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember why we put like novel above like? So basically, we're saying like written is better than like shown on a
I
screen.
don't know why we put it up there. Let's
Yeah.
examine ourselves.
Yes. Okay, I mean, I guess I mentioned a lot. Like, I prefer written because Like you can get more in the thoughts of the characters because it gives the author more control.
Okay, yeah,
And
no, I feel like that cinches it for me. It's just the
that
ability
does it
to
for you.
get really, if you really get into a character's head within a novel. And a lot of times
Yeah,
it's just much harder to connect with characters within
yeah,
audiovisual medium.
yeah. You can also like the idea of like the lens, like how closely are you looking at the events? Very dynamic it can be within a novel. Whereas in a film, like you or in TV, like you have to see the stuff happen.
Hmm.
So yeah, okay, we'll say written is better than shown.
But at the same time, shown, it's just like there's a lot of visual shorthand that does a lot of heavy lifting. Oh my god.
It is, but it can like I don't know, is it worse to explain not even explain really, like show something through writing than through a visual? Like it does is Twitter better?
I do feel like accessibility might just put the written word on top, just because it's so
Yeah, the
easy
accessibility.
to pick up a book and also to make a book. But God, it's so hard, difficult.
I think animated short film like below novel but above television. Just television very inaccessible. You're gonna
Hmm.
spend your whole life. And it's all the same difficulties of like if you want to publish on Netflix or some shizzle, like you gotta like the contract and all. And then on YouTube you get rid of that, but then it's still a lot of work and then YouTube you're taking more risks. You good with that?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think we can read this later.
Hmm. Live action short film. So I guess we can kind of go by the rules already have.
Worse than animated.
Yeah, but the shortness makes it better than. Okay, wait. Okay, this is interesting. What's better, Western animated television, worse because it's longer. Live action short film, worse because it's live action.
This could just be me. I don't like live action short films very much.
I haven't seen that many.
That's the thing.
Um,
I haven't seen that many, and the ones that I've seen, I have not liked very much.
why not?
I just don't vibe with them. I don't know what else to say.
Do you think it was like the specific stories or like the medium?
Might have been the specific stories, but I find that often live action short films are created a lot more by indie people, but the specific
Yeah.
indie people that kind of fall more into cliches. A lot of live action short films I've seen are quite cliche.
Okay. I also consider like a YouTube skit, in my opinion, counts as a live action short film. Like for example, that guy I forget his name, but like he had like the video with like the genes that come to life, or like the what's his name? So
Yes.
the audience should know him too.
Brian David Gilbert.
Yeah, Brian David Gilbert. He had like the VHS horror thing with like his son. Like that's a live action short film, definitely.
When you say YouTube skit, all I can imagine is the one guy who like throws a slipper. And emotional damage.
That's vaguely familiar to me. I've heard that. I mean,
I
I don't think that like reaction
the
videos and
comedy.
stuff should count as short films, but like
No.
stuff that's more towards like it is a story. That's a short film.
YouTube skits. Okay, now that changes the game.
Yes.
Hmm.
So is that better than Western animated television?
I still argue not. Maybe it's
Why
just
not?
me liking animation more. I don't
So it's
know.
subjective.
It is.
I
very
think it's
subjective.
impossible to compare because it's just two different variables and like we don't really have. Oh, no, I think we give priority. Like accessibility should not be the main thing. It should be its appeal.
I feel like animation just has a way of emotionally appealing that sometimes live action doesn't.
I guess we kind of agreed on that. Okay, actually, wait. Okay, the distinction between these two is like either like length or
Length,
like
accessibility,
animatedness. Length is
animatedness.
length. I think length can be like an emotional thing too,
True.
but it also accessibility, and accessibility shouldn't be the priority. I'm happy with the order we have it in now.
Okay.
Live
I was
action
gonna
short
leave it
film
up
is
to you
worse
because
than Western
I was
animated
so
television.
caught.
Yeah, and we have the last one, visual novel.
You saved this one for last because you want to ramble about it, don't you?
I didn't actually essentially save it for last. I probably would have put it earlier so that we could like, I don't know, have it in there. But now that it's here, yeah, I think it's the best personally. But it's pretty biased, because all my favorite stuff has been visual novel. I guess part of it is subjective because it's very associated with like the anime style, which I like, and with the same like culture. But even if you take that away, I think visual novel is the perfect balance of text and visuals because you can have as much text as you want, all the character thoughts, but then you can also have whatever you want on the screen. And you can even, like most visual novels, the visuals are simple because they have sprites on top of a background. But if you want, you can also do like every shot is just its own shot, especially if you use like 3D graphics, which arguably can look a little worse. But you can make the trade-off there. The potential is there. And I think that's better than picture books because like of just the practice, like in practice, picture books can be like weird and like not really well made and targeted towards kids. Whereas visual novels, you see that there's a lot more variation. And also with visual novels is you also get the advantages of a choose your own adventure. And I find that in visual novels they like to incorporate them a little better. This is all very much like practice and maybe even a little subjective. One thing also is the visual novel, it can become any medium it wants at any time. You can have like a video in the middle of a visual novel. You can have gameplay in a visual novel. Because it's digital and it's a program, it's just a piece of software. It can like do whatever it wants. It can put stuff on your computer, like I guess the popular one for that is obviously DDLC. And it's also like it's very convenient to like experience because you have like save points and you can like fast forward and rewind, hopefully. If you're playing like a well-made visual novel with a good UI. And the length is also, it can be whatever you want. Like if you want a really long visual novel, there's plenty of that. If you want a really short visual novel, there's plenty of that. So for those reasons, I think visual novel is the best storytelling medium. But what do you think?
If we had cameras on right now, it would be the best visual gag for me to just start cleaning my room while you were ranting about visual novels.
Yeah.
I knew you were gonna ramble, so I just let you ramble.
Thank you. Like, what do you think about like that? Like, does that sound like...
Honestly, you've really convinced me, but also, yeah, it does take the best elements of every medium we've talked about. This isn't even... So, yeah. I'm not even the biggest, like, fan of visual novels. I'm not even a weeb, and I've played one anime-ish visual novel. It was yours.
Oh my god, yeah. You played the KFC dating simulator.
Barely.
Okay.
It's more like I think we're playing it and I was sitting there. Coffee Talk.
I think it was anime-ish too.
Anime-ish. I've played
like not really anime, but influenced. Yeah.
I mean, I think they're like Indonesian, so...
I think they're watching anime though.
Yeah.
So like, is there anything like you would disagree with about that?
That's the thing. No.
Is there any... Okay, I just see accessibility. Making a visual novel one of the easiest things. Just Ren'Py is a free program and it's great and you can put whatever images you want. It's conducive to like whatever skill set you already have. And then it's like as accessible as video games, but usually a lot cheaper. Like they don't get more expensive than 30. Actually, they can be $60, but then there's like a million hours of content, so you do your money's worth.
Another thing is that video games is often much heavier on gameplay, and I was going to say this before, the gameplay in video games is possibly an accessibility issue. For example, if you really want to know the story of Elden Ring, or like any like Soulsborne game, good luck. Mm-hmm. Visual novel, can't say there's much complex gameplay, but you're getting
for disabled people too. Because you just click.
Exactly. It is like a book but better. It is like a comic but better. The only thing that it's like not is live theater.
Yeah, you're right. It's not live at all. But we said that comes with a lot of issues. Yeah. That like as many issues as it does like advantages. And I guess disadvantages of visual novel. I guess in practice, I don't know, like the culture around it isn't like the best, which is why it's not the most popular medium. It's associated a lot with just like porn or with like I don't know, bad like indie stories that are just like weird and not in a good way. But I think in terms of just a medium and as a means of creating the story, like it beats out everything.
I gotta agree with you, even though I don't think I'll ever make a visual novel, nor will I consume very many. That's probably going to change at some point. I don't see a lot of disadvantages. Mm-hmm. beyond maybe
So
just
what makes you uninterested in it then?
in terms of creation, I just don't want to deal with computer stuff that I don't want to learn more computer stuff that I'm not unfamiliar with. That I am unfamiliar with.
Okay, even with something as simple as that, I understand because it's a whole like thing.
Like, I want to make films and stuff, but that's because I already have a basis in it. I know how to do composition. I know how to film stuff. I have a pretty okay camera just in my phone. I know iMovie, and I'll probably teach myself Premiere Pro.
Mm-hmm. What would turn you off from like playing them then?
Don't know if there's many in there that are for me in terms of just stories. And also,
Yeah, so it's kind of like the culture and like what people are doing in practice.
yeah, the culture. And also, I've just bought a lot more video games that I should play first.
Okay. But yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like we're done. We have our tier. I guess should we look it over and like see if we want to change anything? Or I mean, we've been going for 2 hours. Maybe we should just leave it. 2 hours 20 minutes, almost 2.5.
You know what? Maybe we should have an edit right here. And then we go to sleep. And then the next time we chat, we pop this back on and we're like, okay, we've slept on it for a couple days. New thoughts.
Ah. It's just a pilot episode. I mean, we can revisit another time.
Yeah. Sequel.
Yeah, the sequel. Maybe even if we put in like a guest on and like we got them looking it over with us.
1 year later, 1 year anniversary of us starting this, and we just revisit it.
Yeah. Yeah,
We
I like
start
that
over.
idea. Full circle.
Yeah.
I would see why we're just sitting there lonely.
Crying.
So that is the first episode of Rabbits and Advocates then.
Woo! What a journey. A 2 hour and 20-minute journey on our end that we're probably gonna pare down quite a bit.
Yeah. But yeah,
Once
I had a
again-
lot of fun discussing and stuff with you.
We're definitely living up to our name.
Yeah.
A lot of rambling about random inane rabbit holes, and a lot of devil's advocating.
Yeah. This is it.
This
We've
is
done
it. We've done it!
So thank you so much for listening. We love you. Again, I'm
Or we
Simon.
don't.
No, I love them.
I don't love him. I don't know him.
What? I love them unconditionally. Just
How can
the
you
moment they
love
press
something
play.
that you don't know?
I mean, it's rooted in, the basic love for all life. Maybe we'll talk about that next time. I don't know. Philosophy.
Okay, you know what? Here, I'll give you this. You have chosen to watch/listen to this, and therefore I am infatuated with you, but I do not know you personally, so I cannot say I love you.
Okay, so lust, not love. Cool.
Not lust, infatuation.
Okay. Anyway, we'll chat to you next time. Bye.
Bye!